Hi there, and welcome to 2 of 5 videos on Christian beliefs and teachings, and we are now looking at creation. Here we have again the 8 key concepts that runs through beliefs, teachings and practices. You need to know these 8 words off by heart. There will be two markers on this. So you've got a 2, 5, 8, 15 for Christian beliefs and teachings, and then a 2, 5, 8, 15 for Christian practices. And it's the same 8 words. So if you can memorize these 8 words in the next 4 days, you're laughing. That's an easy 4 marks. We're now looking at this section here, creation. As you can see, it's very small, so it won't take long to go through this at all. And all of this is revision. There shouldn't really be anything new within this. If you've been to a revision session already, you will have received your creation worksheet. If not, come and pick one up from me in class as soon as you can. And let's go through the key terms. So ex nihilo means from nothing, and that is linked to how Christians believe that God made the earth from nothing. Image Dei means in God's image, so in the image of God. It says in the Bible that he created male and female, he created them together to be in God's image. Anthropomorphized is a word that we haven't looked at, but feel free to use it. It's the idea that's linked to the previous topic we were looking at, is how we anthropomorphize God to try to understand what God is like, because God is transcendent. So it's seeing God in human ways, and by giving God terms like omnibenevolent, omnipotent, just, that is helping understand God in human ways and called anthropomorphization. Inerrant, you don't need to use this word, but it just means that God is incapable of being wrong in the eyes of Christians. Myth is the term given to creation stories. They're often called creation myths. And we're going to look at 3 creation stories, if you like, in Genesis 1, 2 and 3. Every religion has creation myths. Myth doesn't necessarily mean it's not true, it just means it's a story. It is something there that has a meaning. And theistic evolution is the idea that Christians believe that God created all things, and evolution is just the process he used in order to create all things. This section has already been taught in the life and death section. I cannot for the life of me remember which bit it is, but I'm sure you'll find it. So in the life and death section, there is a section also on creation, because it's a crossover topic. All right, so first of all, let's have a look at what happened. In a minute, here we go. I'll go back to the other one on what happened on each day. So it is believed that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and it was done in this order. You will never get a question that says, write the order of Genesis or the creation story. You could get a 5 marker that might say, outline the creation, in which case, you'd need to know some of this. So it goes light, sky, dry land and plants, sun, moon and stars, the sea and flying creatures, and then land animals and human beings. Now, I've spoken to you about this before, in that obviously, if we look at this from a literal perspective, it isn't possible to have light without the sun, moon and stars. The picture itself on the screen doesn't make sense because it says light and there's a sunshine, but the sun doesn't come until day 4. But if you split it here, day 1, 2 and 3, what you've got there is 3 habitats. And then you've got these things that fit into the habitats. And so what it shows, rather than be a literal idea of how the world was created, most Christians are non-literal on this point, and they would say, well, it shows that God is a God of order, and he brought order from chaos. And this is seen in that he clearly created the habitats first so that the other things could thrive within them. And it is thought that he created all of this from nothing by beginning, let there be light. I'm just going to go back one. Christian beliefs about creation is that God is transcendent. We don't fully understand God's ways, that he created the world from nothing, ex nihilo, and this is what we're looking at just now, detailed in Genesis and John. John is the one where it talks about the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word is God. Okay? So in Genesis 1 then, in the section that talks, the very first section of the Bible that talks about how the world created, it says various things about humans. And it says that actually, or it implies that humans are the most important part of creation. And here you've got some examples as to why Christians believe from Genesis 1, the creation of the world, why they are the most important. So they were made last. They were the only part that was made in God's image. He says, let us make mankind in our image. Image day. They have free will, can make moral decisions, and they are told to fill the earth and subdue it. If we go into Genesis 2, the story is told slightly differently. It's a different account, and it's told more from the relational part of God and mankind, whereas Genesis 1 talks about, it's the big picture, how everything came into being. And in Genesis 2, it clearly shows that humans are the most important part of God's creation. In this part, it talks about man being created first, and it says he created man from the dust from the ground and blew into his nostrils, and he became a living being. And everything else is made from the man. Okay, everything else is made, for the man, including women. So Eve was made from his rib, etc. And you can talk about how that shows equality, or you could talk about how that shows that she is subservient to him as she was made from him. They were then given the responsibility to act as stewards, to take care of the garden and everything in it. Okay, and then you go to Genesis 3. And in Genesis 3, this is the sin, the fall of mankind, or original sin. And in this, you see how things all start going wrong, where because humans have been given free will, they use that free will then to commit original sin. Original sin is not taking the fruit. The original sin is disobeying God's instructions, which was a divine command. So if God said you can eat from anything but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and they disobey that, that was a divine command because it was given by God. So that was the first sin. Sins in this context aren't necessarily the act, it's the disobedience. If God says do this or don't do this, and you go against that, you've broken a divine command and have therefore sinned. So they are no longer innocent and hide from God, and because of that, the relationship was damaged. And Adam and Eve are punished in different ways to reinforce their complementary roles. So Adam is told that he's going to have to toil the land, and it's going to be really difficult, his life's going to be hard, and Eve is told that she's going to have pain in childbirth, and that her desire will be for her husband, re-establishing that women are subservient to men. So there you have a summary of all three parts of Genesis. But the big issue that probably comes up in this is whether or not to take these stories in Genesis as being literal or non-literal. So from a literal perspective, they believe that you should actually take these Bible stories, including all the Genesis accounts, as literally true. So the fact that God said, let there be light, and then let there be this and let there be that, it might not make sense to us because God is transcendent, so beyond our understanding. But you should take it literally because it reflects God's power and, his omnipotence. Literal Christians do not accept any scientific or alternative theory. They believe that actually the literal translation not only shows how the world was created, but why God created the world, and that indeed humans are the pinnacle of God's creation. Within this literal group, you could mention young earth creationists who believe the earth is between 6,000 and 10,000 years old, and the Bible is literally true in all aspects because the Bible is, in quotes, God breathed. The second one, I haven't highlighted this red, my apologies, or non-literal views, which the majority of Christians have non-literal views on the story of creation, is that Bible accounts and stories have to be understood in the time in which they were written. They had a very limited knowledge of science at the time, and so the authors of the biblical books wrote this as their way of trying to explain their belief and how things came into being. So that means that the Bible accounts must be interpreted. So the Genesis account of creation needs to be interpreted alongside science and rational thought to try and understand the key messages. They would believe that God is responsible for the creation of the world. However, they might accept that science explains how the universe was created, but the Bible explains why the universe was created. Okay, because God is omnibenevolent and God loves humanity and this, that, and the other. So there you go. So that means that many Christians agree with the Big Bang. We looked at theistic evolution, so that evolution is thought could be seen as being the process that God used for his creation, which means that he didn't just set the world in motion and then step back as a transcendent being and let the world get on with it. He actually has a part of it currently. And then you've got day-age creationists, which is a good term, and these non-literalist Christians accept the theory of evolution as when God said, let there be, and there was each day, that was actually a lengthy period of time, which kind of sort of fits in with the development of the world and evolutionary theory. So there you go, you've got literal and non-literal views. If you have a look at the sheet now, we know what happens on each day. We can outline Genesis 2, that's when God made Adam from the dust from the ground. You know, it's really important, the Genesis 2 as well, because God got Adam to name all the animals in Genesis 2, which really reflects his dominionship over the world as well, as part of being in God's image. And then he told them to take care of them. And Genesis 3 is your original sin. I've just gone through the literal understanding of Genesis and the non-literal. Don't worry about conservative and liberal views. It's enough to know that there are various non-literal understandings of Genesis. The top one says, list 3 things that Genesis 1 to 3 teaches Christians about humans. I've jotted down a few. It shows that throughout all the Genesis stories, we can see that God has a plan, that humans had high importance, that humans were to be in God's image, and that humans were to given dominionship and stewardship of the world. That often comes up as a 5-mark question. All right, well, that's the end of the creation section. That's all I've got for you now. So bye for now.